I took out a 17% mortgage on my house.
Mhm.
And an interesting thing to recognize there, I made sure it was an open mortgage so I could make prepayments on the principal.
Mhm.
Because if you think about it, a prepayment on a 17% mortgage gives my net worth 17% increase after tax.
Oh, so like every dollar you put in, because it's a 17% rate, you're avoiding having to pay that 17% for the amount that you add extra.
Exactly,
Mhm.
exactly. And my wife and I had that thing paid off and within 3 or 4 years.
Wow. I'm here with Bruce Anderson. He's a hypnotist and the author of Beyond Good Enough, the inner journey from overwhelm to owning it. It's a step-by-step system to shift your beliefs, because what you believe is who you are. And so shift your beliefs to become the person who is capable of getting what you want out of life. And I've had some great conversations with Bruce, and two things. First of all, we're going to get into, how'd you do it? How'd you retire? And how to make this life. And the second is he has some interesting views on the secret to happiness. So, hi, Bruce. Welcome.
Hi,
And
thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. It's really great to have you. Let's start out. So, okay, how'd you do it?
How did I do it? I started out, I was back in the old days in ancient history times. I was actually working for a salary for a large part of my career, and stumbled across, and frankly, it was purely by accident, but it was a financial advisor, stockbroker, who I clicked with. And I said, I like what this guy is saying, and I stuck with him. And at one point, I switched from salaried work to consulting work, which multiplied my income by about 2.5 and cut my taxes in half. So not a bad thing to do.
So I'll just say I'm a believer in trust your gut.
Yes. Oh yeah, absolutely. I call it my intuition, but gut feel is another name for intuition.
Yeah.
So when you're onto something that feels right, do it.
Yeah. I'll go and sort of do a little bit of checking, but
Sure.
it's like, yeah, this is what's pulling me. So
Right.
Okay, I interrupted
Exactly.
you. Go ahead.
Right. So the broker got me into, this was back in the 80s when interest rates were sky high. And he got me and his other clients into something called zero coupon bonds.
Yep.
And the thing about bonds is that when long bonds, when interest rates go
Long
down,
bonds are bonds that have a loan for a long period of time.
that's right. When interest rates go down, the value of the bond goes way up. And that produced a major chunk of the money that funded my retirement.
Because you happen to have been in it at the time when interest rates were high. So when they dropped, the value of
Yes.
your investments bond vehicles went up. That's my assumption.
Exactly. Yes.
I used to be lucky.
I took out a 17% mortgage on my house.
Mm.
And an interesting thing to recognize there, I made sure it was an open mortgage so I could make prepayments on the principal.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you think about it, a prepayment on a 17% mortgage gives my net worth 17% increase after tax.
Oh, so like every dollar you put in, because it's a 17% rate, you're avoiding having to pay that 17% for the amount that you add extra.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And my wife and I had that thing paid off and within 3 or 4 years.
Wow.
Boom, get rid of that thing.
Good for you.
17%. Throw money at it anytime
So
we
that
can.
and laying and the zero coupon bonds, the way the things played out, funded your retirement.
That was a big piece of this. The next piece was something called royalty trusts, which is a
So and I'll
mechanism.
just say my audience is typically people that are I had one person say it's Planet Finance. It's so foreign to me. I've never been there and I don't even
Right.
imagine going there. So I just don't want to, I want to be careful with what
Right.
we
It's a
like.
it's a mechanism for, I'll keep it simple, and they're not there anymore. So
Okay.
it's just, we looked around and found a vehicle
Mhm.
that gave wonderful returns.
Mhm.
And a royalty trust at the time was basically, it's like buying an interest in an oil well that's pumping oil, and you get a piece of the profits from that. That was
Right.
basically how they worked.
Well, in a sense, when you buy stocks, you're buying a piece of a company and you're getting a chunk of their profits. So it's kind of along, I mean, it's
It's the
kind of
same
along those
idea. It's just that at the time, the numbers for this particular investment were much better than typical dividends.
right.
And that brought me to a point where I had enough money to comfortably retire.
Right.
It
But then I
took-
remember you told me there was another kind of, so if I said 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, what would that mean to you?
That's how
I'm
I
quoting you.
guided my life, my financial choices from day to day. And the basic principle was 1/3 of what you make belongs to the government. You're going to pay it in sales tax, property tax, income tax.
It
They're
goes
going
away.
to get it. They're going to get it no matter how much you don't like it. You can't do anything about it. So
Right.
accept it. And that, by the way, is one of the keys to happiness, accepting the world as it is.
Okay.
So 1/3 of my income goes to the government. That's it. 1/3 of the income goes to living, paying for food. I had paid off the mortgage by then, so
Mhm.
I didn't have mortgage payments.
Right. And so
But
that
there's
helps.
still,
Yeah.
there's still insurance and utilities.
Right.
And I've never bought a car with a payment plan. It's always been cash.
Mhm.
So all of those things, and that leaves food, vacations, and so on.
All those sort of core things. Yeah.
Yeah.
And a little plate. Right.
Yes. And the final third goes to increasing net worth. Now, back when the mortgage
So I'll
was still
say,
there,
so there's kind of two pieces to that, just based on the conversations I've had with my students. So the point here is that final third goes to savings, and then how can you best put it to work?
right?
But
Well,
the point is that you save that, but not just tuck it away somewhere, but then like, okay, little savings, it's time for you to do your job,
right.
like that.
Right.
So, and
Well,
I'm just,
I use the phrase increasing my net worth because the number one priority for me was eliminate any debt. Get rid of it,
Mhm.
because I don't want to be paying interest to somebody else, especially not.
So all those sort of, I'll call it savings, which includes any kind of investment and stuff like that, minus your debts, is your net worth. And
Exactly.
the idea is, first of all, you want it to be positive. And second of all, by the time you get to where you'd like to retire or like be free, have it big enough that however you put it to work is going to carry you through.
Exactly.
So anyway,
So-
sorry.
So the third, now, we lived in a neighborhood of fairly wealthy people. And we noticed that they were always driving around in a brand new Lexus or a brand new SUV, and would go on wonderful all-inclusive vacations several times a year and things like
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
and send their kids to private schools. Um, they were doing that, I realized, because they were not using that other third
They didn't do a
to
third, a third, a
increase their
third, did
net
a
worth.
half and a half.
Right. And they left out the savings part, or maybe
Yep.
threw a little bit in, but nothing compared to what I was doing.
Mhm.
That third with compound interest is what makes a comfortable retirement possible.
I wholeheartedly agree. I
So
mean, you can, if you have a business, you can think in terms of having residuals and other sort of things like that on, in addition, there's Social Security, there's other things, but there's like, certainly luxury and play comes out of that,
right.
that,
Well,
that
another
piece that you put
piece,
aside.
another example of that is that I had a consulting company. I had to set up a corporation to do the consulting I was doing. I said I was earning 2.5 times what my salary had been before and paying half the tax. But there's another really important thing for that. I used the corporation essentially as an IRA
Mhm. And how'd you
because
do that?
I can accumulate money in the corporation. The corporation makes money, pays tax at a very low rate.
Mhm.
And all my taxes went down because the corporation paid for a lot of my expenses,
Mhm.
and I left the money in the corporation. I took out what I needed to live on and nothing more. So I allowed that to accumulate. When I did draw a salary, which I can do from my own corporation, whether I'm doing any work or not,
Right,
then I have to pay income tax on that because
right,
it's earned income.
right.
But I spread that out. It was, I think, at least 4 or 5 years after I stopped consulting before I had exhausted those funds.
Mhm. Just be smart in terms of the amount, basically that you're, so paying yourself, withdrawing from that amount that's in the corporation so that you're kind of tax savvy and stuff like that.
Exactly. And
Mhm.
that makes, over time, that makes a big difference. The
Now,
other,
I'll say, in terms of structures, I know we're going to the weeds a little bit, but just, I know, like if you have an LLC, you pay taxes at your own personal tax rate. And if you have a corporation, then there's a corporate rate, but then there's also overhead with the corporation. You have to have a board, you have to have an annual review report. There's some other things. Was that much of a headache?
no, because with a small corporation, which was, myself and my wife, we were the board. We were the whole board.
Right.
So having, we can go out for dinner and have a board meeting.
Mhm.
So there was no expense related to the board. We're not paying directors to
Right.
manage
Yeah, I understand.
consulting. It was pretty straightforward. It cost me about $1,000 a year for an accounting company to do the tax stuff. I tried doing corporate account tax return once and forget it, never again. I'm happy to pay an
Right.
accountant to do that.
So if you incorporate, then there's a few things of overhead and you at least have to have an accountant.
Right. And you would do it if you do it and intend to take all the money out.
Mhm.
So you get a big salary and not accumulate savings, then you're wasting your money to set up a corporation.
Mhm.
If the corporation can earn enough that you can accumulate money in it, then it makes sense.
And then you would take the money that was in the corporation and apply it to appropriate investment vehicles.
Yeah. Because I had a corporate investment account and they invested.
Like whatever. Yeah. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of different ways to do that. And there's a lot of weeds that we can get into, but that's the core of it. So is that basically how you did it?
That's how I did it. And right now that I've retired, I divorced a few years ago and ended up with half the value of a house,
Mhm.
which I put into real estate. And in my retirement savings, the Canadian equivalent of an IRA
You're in
or
Canada.
PO, Yeah, I'm in Canada, so the tax laws are different, but there are similarly structured vehicles.
Mhm.
The equivalent of IRA or KEO,
Right.
where you can accumulate earnings tax-free and you only pay tax when you withdraw funds.
Right.
That
Right.
kind of structure. So I've invested my my
That money.
isolated money, the IRA equivalent money,
Right.
that's invested in a high-paying mortgage. And the other money is invested in through a syndicate into basic real estate and corporate ventures. It's a
Yeah, it's like you
bag.
basically if once you have the money in there, then you make the most sensible investment
Right,
choices for yourself. And depending on how sophisticated you are, it's like one sort of thing versus like keeping it a little simpler. But essentially, you made sure you had that stuff
right.
there, and the more you could do in that kind of retirement savings account piece, you put in there, and then whatever's left, you did
Yeah,
like
and the key to all of those pieces is to balance cash flow. Because if I'm not, I'm not earning a lot of money now. I still do work. I still do consulting work. I make videos for the church and things like that and get
right.
paid for them. So that brings in a little money, but it's
Mhm.
nowhere near enough to live on. So what I have to do is for investment planning, is to look very carefully. There's many investments that you can put money into. Real estate's a good example most of the time.
Like sometimes if you tie your money up in something, you have to make sure that that you can get access to it over time as you need it. You got to think that
Exactly.
through.
Or
Or there's ways to do simpler versions of that. The,
Yeah.
the reason, so I'm
Mechanisms so
gonna
that
put
I
a
get
pause on. I'm gonna put a pause on this
Sure.
piece because it may start to get a little complex for
Right.
my
Well,
audience. But I'll say this: in my entrepreneur retirement solutions course, we decode all of that stuff. And so, if you're sweating bullets, there's ways to, and Planet Finance, or finance is a foreign language.
yes.
There's ways we can get you there.
Yeah. The key piece that I focused on was paying attention to not just how much return I would get, but to the flow, the steady flow of cash, which I
Make sure
need
you
to
had
live.
cash available to you at the time you needed it.
Exactly.
So I'm going to switch gears. This is this is really interesting. And
Good.
I mean, and I'm a geek on that stuff, so I can dig deeper, but we're not going to, I think, for the sake of my audience. But the other piece that we want to talk about in the time we have left is you talked about the secret to happiness. And I really love that conversation with you.
Yes. There are two pieces that I work with on most of my clients, actually all of them. If I think back to what the big picture of how I helped people over time, it's two main themes. One theme is accepting yourself as you are. You are not broken. You have all the resources you need to do whatever you need to do. Accepting yourself, because an awful lot of people will have a feeling about something, or they'll have some burden from the past that bothers them, and they get upset about it. I don't like that feeling.
And even though they're sitting in their, let's say, in their living room comfortably, or out with someone for dinner or whatever, and I mean, like you and I right now, we look around and
Yeah.
I mean, we're safe. Things are okay.
Exactly.
But
Yes.
there's these beliefs about like, this is not right, or all those sort of things that
Mhm.
It's like if you just pause and take a look around you and see in this moment,
Yes.
I'm okay.
I'll get to that in a minute. But
No,
that,
sorry, but I'm just
yeah,
kind of
yeah, riffing on.
I'm so
Sure.
deep into this myself. It's like I'm
Yeah,
into
I
what
know.
you're saying.
Turns you on too. So accepting myself as who I am, and that if I have a feeling, an emotion about something, that's okay. I'm allowed to have that because it's part of who I am. And I go through a lot of work to help people accept themselves as they are. And that takes a huge burden off. Second thing is to accept the world around you as it is, because an awful lot of people devote an enormous amount of energy uh, objecting to the world as it is. No, I don't want it to be that way. So we work on that. Now, one of the ways that we work on it is when I finally recognized what was happening, I was kind of dumbfounded and thought to myself, wait a minute, it can't be that easy. And it appears to be that easy. And here's what it's about. Every day, thousands of times a day, we make tiny little choices, most of them completely unconscious, and about what to focus on, where to turn our attention, and what meaning to give what we're turning our attention to. And we can choose to notice what's wrong or what's missing, or we can choose to focus on what we want and can move towards, on what we have and feel gratitude for, and what we have accomplished and can celebrate. Now, you were talking a couple of minutes ago about noticing what we have. We live in a safe environment. I mean, we can turn on the tap and get drinking water that's safe to drink.
Yeah.
We can walk down inside underneath a roof and find a toilet that we can use to relieve ourselves. There are major parts of the world where that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So,
And
we
those are
have
just
got
a
to
couple
get it.
very simple
Yeah.
examples of stuff that we take for granted. We
Yeah,
just assume that's just part of things, and we lose sight of the fact that,
yeah.
hey, those are things I don't have to worry about.
We walk down the street and come to a street corner and we look around and there's no militia there with submachine guns.
Yeah. Yeah, or some other country
No.
coming in with tanks and to be
Yeah,
topical.
Yeah,
Yeah,
indeed.
I understand.
Okay, so the process is shift the focus. Now, because we do this thousands of times a day, this isn't an all or nothing thing. This is every time I notice I'm focusing on what's wrong or what's missing, I say, oh, how could I shift my perspective on this so that I'm focused on what I want? Like if you're
Mhm.
working on, say, figuring out what to do to financially get ready for retirement, you could say, oh my God, I didn't save anything for so many years, and I'm starting from such a little pile of money, and that's focusing on what's wrong.
Right.
You could focus on, okay, well, what do I really need to retire? How much money do I need? And what's it going to take to go from where I am now to where I want to be?
Right.
That's,
And you know what? I can figure this out.
yeah, yeah. And
Or I can,
that's
at a minimum, I can start taking steps in that direction.
right.
And
But
every step that I take that way is going to improve my life.
and that's an achievement that you can celebrate.
And then you can do this. You raise your hand, turn your palm backward, and pat yourself on the back.
Exactly. Or do a little happy dance,
Yeah, exactly.
or say Hakuna Matata, or however you want to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
So an interesting thing about two interesting things, actually. In order to focus on what we want, we have to know what we want.
Yeah.
And one of the problems that at least I run into all the time as a hypnotist, and I ran into as a manager of staff, is people don't know what they want.
Yeah.
They haven't taken the time to really think about it, and no one has given them the guidance that they need to work out what they want and how they will know they've got it.
Yeah.
Because that you can say, oh, I want X, I want to be happy, or I want world peace.
Right.
And well, how will you know when you've got it?
Well, what does that
Oh.
mean to you?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And what will your life look like when you have it? So,
Mhm.
and beneath that, which my book is all about, is what do you want once you've got a desire that's actually achievable, in other words, it's stated in the positive and it's under your control, not somebody else's. What do you need to believe to accomplish that you don't believe right now? Because you haven't accomplished it yet, so there's probably something in your way.
Yeah.
And that problem, 90% of the time, at least, is in our heads. It's the beliefs. And I don't exclude myself from this category, because
Sure.
a lot of this, my insights come not just from working with clients, but my own introspection,
Mhm.
introspection.
Yes.
Because, oh, I believed that wasn't possible. Oh, but I've been doing it, so I guess I must be able to do it. And what I've noticed is that people who spend the majority of their focus on what they want, what they have, and what they've achieved are happy.
Yeah.
And
so there's, and you hear these quips like attitude of gratitude, or, practice, wake up in the morning and practice gratitude, or, those sort of things. And it sounds sort of trite, but, you're really bringing that to a practical point.
yes. And there's real
every moment you're sort of choosing one way or the other. And so, and if you know that, then you can choose.
That's right.
And then as you do notice it, it's like, okay, so what's the game plan? Oh, that's going on. What's the game plan for the next thought?
and there's real neuroscience behind this, because the part of our brains that moves us towards what we want, because each time we move towards what we want, there's that sense of movement, of satisfaction, of it's just like gratitude.
Yeah.
And the gratitudes and the celebration, because celebrating something we've accomplished and being grateful for something, those are twins as well.
Right.
All of those things are processed by the same neural circuitry in our brains and stimulated by the same endorphins and all those magical chemicals that flow around in our brains.
Right.
As success.
And I kind of imagine like a companion interdicting process, which is you move towards something good, and at first the mechanisms you just talked about come into play, and you keep kind of moving there, and then there's this sort of interdicting thing that can come up, which is like, wait a minute, this is like a little too good, I should watch out. Or like, am I allowed to, like, my point is all those things. And that's really back to your earlier whole explanation of the process of like being present to things and removing some beliefs in others.
Yeah, and that's got to do with beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
If something like that,
right there at the heart of it.
If feeling really happy scares you, there's a belief in your mind that, oh, when's the penny gonna drop?
Yeah.
Oh, this is too good for me,
Yeah.
and that's where the title of my book comes from, Beyond Good Enough.
Yeah. Yes. I'm I think, so we could do a lot more conversation on this,
Yes,
and yet I want to kind of respect the attention span of the people listening. And so is there something I didn't ask you that I should have, or some key point that I didn't?
I think in terms of the length of time we've got to talk this through, we've covered the essence of the book and the essence of my how I came to retire comfortably, and the essence of happiness. Although I will throw out one little thing.
Of course.
One of my favorite sound bites over time has been, oh, I would tell people, but really I'm an abject failure. I just can't do it. I'm a total failure. I have tried for years to really retire, and I just can't.
Yeah, like
So
like almost to a person, the entrepreneurs I talk with about retirement, and it's like, I still want to feel like I'm making a difference. I still want to be contributing. I still have stuff left. I just don't want to have to work as hard about it. I don't want to worry about the money and, others, like that kind of thing. But I want to keep doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, exactly. If you've been spending your life working on the assembly line at General Motors and you retire, that's an abrupt transition. Now you've got the bowling league and sitting beside the pool cooking hot dogs or whatever it is you do. But for an entrepreneur, we can do it gradually.
Yeah.
And still keep our fingers in, because I get a lot of satisfaction out of doing things about making a difference in the world. And I intend to keep doing that for at least another 30 years.
And I would submit that that's also a part of the secret to happiness. Like having a purpose that you say is important.
Right. I have some lovely stories about that, but that'll have to be time for a different interview.
Okay. All right. So thank you, Bruce. Again, Bruce's book is Beyond Good Enough, The Inner Journey from Overwhelm to Owning It. And what's the best way for people to reach you?
Best way for people to reach me is by going out to I'm on my website is beyondgoodenoughbook.com. They can do it through there. They can acquire the book from Amazon.
Great. Awesome. So thank you so much for your time. It's been really great. I love talking with you, and I hope this was useful for folks. I think I'm sure.
And for me, this is part of that making a difference in the world.
Yeah.
For me.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Bruce. We're going to call it. Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye for now.